the biggest mistake that people make with using AI tools is...
Welcome to Entrepreneur in Action. Today's guest is Sébastien Night, a serial entrepreneur and founder of One Take AI.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So what we do is we talk about the 4 F's: finance, fitness, family, and fun. And we always start with your current business. So
Okay.
tell us about your current business.
To put things simply, One Take is made for the very small businesses, so just one person, a solopreneur, or somebody that has a very small team, who needs to sell their products online. Could be services as a coach, a consultant, a book author, or a speaker. Could be physical products. And today, to get people to know about your product, you have to publish videos, whether they are long form videos on YouTube, short content for TikTok or other social media, or audio that you take from the video and that you use as a podcast. And what happened is, in my previous business, which we'll call the Free Entrepreneurs Movement, we coached 300,000 entrepreneurs in 41 countries to start and grow their business. And during COVID, as we were growing our coaching considerably, I noticed that the top obstacle that our customers were facing when they wanted to publish content about their expertise online was that there are many easy technical solutions for many parts of the job. Like if you want to host an online course, that is solved. There are 1,000 websites that will host the videos and have a password for your customers to access it. If you want people to pay you, there are many options from Stripe to PayPal to get the money. However, there was one technical problem that nobody had solved, which is if you have your expertise and you want to share it, so you're able to talk about it, but you want to turn that into a professional presentation, there was no tool that would just do the job for you. So you had to do all of the video editing by yourself in Adobe Premiere, Sony Vegas, Filmora, or whatever tool. Most of our entrepreneurs, they would take like 10 hours to edit one YouTube video. And so as a result, most of them ended up having one YouTube video because you don't want to do that ever a second time in your life. And so I came up with this idea of, what if we were able to build an AI model that basically you're hiring as if you were hiring a freelancer to edit your videos for you, and would save you the time and save you the cost. So what One Take AI does is you just record or upload your raw video, you present it the way you can with all the mistakes and the ums and the ahs, and it removes the hesitations, the awkward silences. Even it removes the mistakes. If you said something and corrected it, it improves the sound, removes the background noise. It composes custom music for just this specific video. And it does all of that on its own by just clicking one button and you're done. So that's what One Take AI does.
Fantastic. Yeah, I absolutely agree that this is a problem because it really, the way of video editing, right, through using like Adobe Premiere, these types of tools, like it really did take forever. And not only that, but you think that you're like making progress and then it would just crash. And then you would
True.
have like
And then you have to
nothing
start from
left
scratch.
for those 4 hours of rendering or something like that.
True. So we solve basically that problem. And the initially it was a little bit of an uphill battle because we started before AI was a thing. Meaning when I came up with the idea in 2021, and ChatGPT only arrived at the very tail end of 2022 on 30th of November. So for more than a year, I was talking about this AI tool, and people were like skeptical about the entire idea of AI, because their only conception of AI was the Scarlett Johansson movie and um, 2001 Space Odyssey. That was mostly it. So when you said AI is editing your video, they were like, are you secretly hiring a team of people in a third world country to do my video and hiding them in a box somewhere? But then what happened is, in that first year, we went from 0 to 100 businesses using One Take. And then ChatGPT happened at the end of that year, and everybody was interested in using AI tools. And so we went from 100 to 400 in the second year. And then this year we went from 400 to more than 3,000. We'll probably end the year at 4,000. So we 10x in 1 year.
That's terrific. What do you attribute to like your ability to get the word out, right? Because it's one thing to build the product and you've made this beautiful thing. How were you able to leverage your network? What did you do to help people understand that this was available and that they should, get it?
Yeah, that was when I started, that was my number one risk, I guess, was you don't want to start and work in secret, especially in software, because that's what so many startups mistakenly do. They start working on software in their garage somewhere, and 3 years later they show up with something without knowing if people would want to buy it or not. So what I did instead is, first of all, I leveraged my existing business, which was a coaching business. The audience was the same. That's, I think, one of the important pieces of advice for anyone that's considering starting something new is you can be one step remote from what you were doing before, but because then you can have one foot on the foundations that you've built in the past and then step forward with it, and the other foot. But if you're two steps forward, then you might just fall. And here I was able to leverage that I had an existing business with an existing customer base. So I was creating a solution that targeted the people that I already knew and worked with. And so in January 2022, I basically pre-sold. I said, I have this software. I've already made a demo prototype. It's not yet ready to use. So the demo prototype had no login system. He didn't have like multiple accounts, multiple languages. You couldn't save your work. It would just show you how it worked, but it lacked the polish of actual software that you can sell. But I said, here's the demo. If you're interested, you can basically pre-order, and then it will be available for you to use on April 1st. So I gave myself 3 months to add that polish, but I first wanted to make sure that I had at least one customer ready to purchase it.
So you gave them like how did the pricing work for those first users? Did you give them like a special deal? Was it like a low price and
Uh,
it's for life? Or I've seen various deals like that. I don't know.
yeah, there's some there's many easy traps to fall into, and luckily, so I had experience from 15 years of running several different businesses, including one tech business, and there are approaches that I knew I didn't want to do. I did not want to start with a free product and hope that one day we could upgrade people to paid, because this is like extremely difficult. And also because it is as hard or harder to get someone to engage with the product, especially a software product, if it's free versus a paid product. So I decided from the beginning I wanted to sell it as a paid product, and I wanted to start at the top level of engagement and then work my way down. So initially, I only sold a yearly subscription for the first, I think, 9 months, 6 to 9 months. And then once we were happy with how people were happy with the software, I said, okay, let's try a quarterly subscription. So people pay on a 3-month basis. And then 3 months later, we opened, when we saw the retention of the quarterly people, I think 2 quarters later, actually, we opened a monthly option. And to this day, most of our revenue comes from selling the yearly and the quarterly options. These are the two I prefer selling. And here's why. My experience is that if people buy software that has a 14-day free trial or has a monthly payment, what happens is they need to get their return on investment within the 13 days or the 29 days before the second payment comes in. So This gives you a very narrow window. Depends on the software. There's some software that within the first 2 weeks you're going to use like every day. There's some software like ours where some of the businesses that use us, maybe they create like one podcast a week. Maybe they have a couple of videos a month that are very important and valuable for their business, but not that often. And so what happened is when we sell someone on a quarterly or yearly subscription, they basically, it gives them the time to have enough videos there, enough uh, investment and return on their investment, that renewing is a no-brainer. And somebody that comes in with a much shorter subscription cycle tends to be more impatient, because, well, if you only had like one podcast a week and you sign up for a 2-week trial, then maybe you only tried it on one of your podcasts. So that's why we prefer those longer cycles.
One thing that's always made me feel very curious about, how editing through an AI works. Like how are you like how do you store all of this data? Is it just that now it's more affordable and that's how you can afford, because people are paying their subscription price, but
Mhm.
part of that is that you have to store everything. So did you like have to build your own thing, or is it just cheap enough that you can buy it from Amazon or something like that? Is that I'm just
That's
curious.
that's correct. So there's a first of all, there's a business trick that I learned from the one of the co-founders of Skype. Um, he had this principle that he called the rule of zero. And the way it works is, in every business, you have a couple of costs, usually one, that is the vast majority of your fixed cost basis. So, for instance, I used to run a Latin dance school. And if you have a dance school, your top expense is usually the place, like the venue, because you have to buy or rent it, and that's going to be most of your spend. The second largest will be the teachers, if you're not the teacher yourself. And so, what the rule of zero says is that cutting your main cost by 5 to 10% is possible if you're a god at negotiation, but it is extremely difficult. It's possible, it's just very difficult. If you're a restaurant and you want to cut the price of the ingredients by 5 to 10%, you can. It's just going to be hard. What the rule of zero says is that it's usually easier to get this cost to become zero versus reduce it by 5%. Because if you decide that you want this line item to be zero, you will find some creative ideas where it can be free for you. And what they did at Skype was, Skype had a server cost of zero because they figured out a way that you, as the user, would connect directly to the other user. So you're taking the cost on your side. And they even had, at the beginning, before Microsoft bought them, this very smart hack where, as a Skype user, if you're leaving your computer on and you're not making calls, your computer is actually used as a server for calls between other Skype users. So they didn't have to have their own servers because their users were subsidizing this cost 100%. It was brilliant. And so, yeah, you didn't know that? That was a great trick that they had.
Wow.
So they saved millions by doing this. So when I did the salsa business, I had the same idea. Instead of renting a venue, I partnered with a bar where I would bring all of my students to take the classes there. I had 150 students after the first year. So the bar was always full of people, thanks to my classes, but I didn't have to spend anything on rent. So when I came up with the idea for One Take, which was not the initial name, but when I came up with the idea, I drew up a spec of what I wanted the software to do. And in the spec, I made the math and I said, well, if you're going to run an online video editing business, your main costs will be bandwidth, because people upload gigantic files to you. And if you host the videos, then you also streaming gigantic amounts of data. So bandwidth, storage, because if you host the videos, you have to have them somewhere, and computing, because you're transforming the files, which is extremely compute intensive. So when I wrote the spec, I wanted to create the proof of concept, and I put it in there that we should basically it should cost us zero in bandwidth, storage, and computing. And then I had several big company CTOs from some of my contacts of mine. They had their CTOs review the spec before I gave it to a team of developers. And all three of the CTOs that checked out the spec said, this is very ambitious and it's very likely to be impossible. It turns out that I didn't tell the developer team that what I asked was impossible. And I hired the right people because they did it in the span of 2 weeks. I had my proof of concept, and so there are you just have to be smart and figure out if there are companies you can partner with or options which can cut the cost to zero. For instance, we at the beginning for the first more than a year, we used a company as a vendor where ingesting content was 100% free. So they had the same kind of price points for other features that we needed, but you could upload any volume of content to them and they would not charge you for it. So where if you went to Amazon, if you went to Google Cloud, then your costs would have been significantly higher. So we were smart in the way that we tried always to optimize for cost equals zero versus cost is slightly cheaper.
I love that. That's a wonderful framework. Yeah, if you start thinking about that in any aspect of your life, what an amazing way of looking at things as an entrepreneur.
The rule of zero.
The rule of zero. I like that. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm very curious to see other ways that you have applied this um, to to great effect.
So let's see a couple of ways historically. So I'll give you an example. In my previous business, we used to run live events. And one of the things that I wanted to do in creating a great experience was having gifts for everyone in the room. Especially, I'm a big fan of business books. I like how to deep in the trenches books, but many people like inspirational books. And with that event, we wanted to have some of those. And I was trying to figure out how much would it cost us for an event that is expected to have 800 people in the room to have a couple books or at the time audio CDs and things like that per person. And it climbs very fast. If you're going to spend $20 per person, 800 people, you're at $16,000 out of pocket to create those gifts. What happened is I had a look at our list of attendees and customers. One of them was a publishing company that specialized in self-help books. They had the license for the French translations of all of Napoleon Hill. I don't know how you pronounce it in English. Napoleon Hill. Yeah, all of his books in French language, they have the rights to them. And so I reached out to them and we had a conversation about them becoming a sponsor of the event. And what they wanted was, since our audience was similar to theirs, they wanted to be able to have a booth at the event, cost me nothing. They wanted to be able to give a speech at the event on one of the themes of their newest book that was going to come out. Also free for me, doesn't cost me a thing. Also gives me valuable content for the event. And what I asked in exchange is, out of their entire collection, could we select a couple of products? So we selected, if I remember right, we selected one book and one CD that would make a great gift for the audience, but also for them would not be would not be a big expenditure, because as a publishing house, which books this year are going to stay on your hands because you ordered too many. And so we had this deal where in France there's a specific way you have to do this. It might be the same for many listeners, so they might need to know this from a legal standpoint. In France, you cannot do barter agreements between businesses, so you have to invoice what you did, but you can have invoices cancel each other. So if I'm charging you 16 grand for being a sponsor at my event, you can charge me 16 grand for the books. And so we don't have to wire any money to each other, but we can do this win-win deal. So this was a way that we were able to provide gifts to every single attendee. And at the same time, it made them a ton of money, because in my event, I refer to many books and I speak about the importance of books. So their booth was full from like day one to the last minute of the event. And they sold many more books than what they gave away during the event. So it was a great win-win. They stayed with us actually I think for all 3 or 4 editions of this yearly event, they stayed as a sponsor because it was so profitable for them.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love the creativity where you're thinking about the rule of zero, and then how can it be a win-win for everyone. You were able to create that in this situation. Again, like the booth, that's no cost to you, and the books, they might have had some overstock laying around that they're paying for storage, so they might be spending negative money by getting rid of those books.
That's true. I
Away.
didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so so I want to learn a little bit more about what's different about your product, right? So there are, one take AI, and I want to know, like, tell me why people are using one take AI over other products.
Okay. Top reason people are using One Take AI over products is that it's not a video editing tool, in the sense that a tool is something you have to use. A tool is like a hammer. So you want the house renovated, you're going to have to use a hammer. It's going to cost you, in the case of the neighboring building, we are very lucky they finished a couple of days before we record this podcast, but otherwise it took them months of making noise and banging the walls. So the top reason people use us instead of using Filmora, Camtasia, or all of those tools is if you use a traditional video editing tool, you have what we call the dreaded timeline. And so you have to drag your file. It shows as a line of frames here. And then you have to drag a music file below it. You adjust the volume. And then you find the places where you said something wrong. You have to cut them manually. You try to add some titles. You have to type them in. And you have to do all of that by yourself. So this is a big waste of time. And if you hire somebody to do this for you, they'll typically charge $75 an hour of work, and they'll typically take 10 to 12 hours to edit professionally 1 hour of video. So it can cost you, for typical business videos, $1,000 for 1 hour of content. People who work with shorter formats will charge you usually a small amount, like $50 per video. But then if you're going to do a daily video, then you're spending $1,500 per month on just TikTok content. And so not having to use the tool yourself and not having to hire some freelancer are the top 2 reasons people use us. The third reason is something we built a year ago when we realized that many business owners and entrepreneurs don't always know what should be the next video, the next piece of content, the next email they should send their list. So what we created is is a chat assistant, where instead of being a generalist chat AI like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, we built an assistant that learns from what you've done in your existing content. So if you have done YouTube videos before, or masterclasses, webinars, even team trainings for your team, you just upload those videos, let the AI edit them. But as it's editing the videos, so typically for an hour of video, it might take 5 minutes to edit it for you, which is much faster than a freelancer. But as it's editing the video, it's watching it to learn. And as a result, it's then able to help you figure out, if you ask for new product ideas, what's a bonus content piece of content I could do on top of what I've already done that would entice customers to stay longer, things like that. It's like you hired a very smart intern to edit your video. And if you actually had like hired somebody that has, because these AIs, they are the equivalent of someone that has multiple PhDs, has read all of Wikipedia, and now they've watched all of your content. If you had that person working in your office, you wouldn't just give them the videos to do. From time to time, you might ask them, do you have any idea of what we could do? I need to send an email to a potential affiliate partner. Could you write a draft? And the intern would do it. So that's also one of the big things that OneTake does. And by doing this, it has two advantages on a generalist AI like ChatGPT. One is it's learned from your content, so the answers are relevant to your business and what it's doing. And second is we use a technology we call the containers, where the AI is learning from your content, but the learning is only confined within your account. And the big risk with most of the large AI chat assistants is that whenever you're entering something into your chat GPT and you have this great idea and this great brand that you haven't trademarked yet and all of that, it's all going into a huge vat of data that's going to be used to train the next chat GPT. And that's going to be accessible to everybody else. And we feel that for most businesses that use OneTake AI, which often are knowledge businesses, expertise businesses, like a consultant, a coach, someone that sells online courses, they have their own ideas, intellectual property they want to protect. And so we build the system so that it learns from it, but the learning is not accessible to other users and remains only to be used by you.
One way I've heard it said is like maybe an LLM that is public is maybe a big brain, and then what the container that you've created is like a small brain. And so you want to be able to have that smaller brain that can still give you valuable insights into your own data without leaking it out
Mhm.
to your competitors for them to learn all your secret sauce.
Exactly. And in the AI world, the analogy you just mentioned, big brain and small brain, is because typically the choice that individuals would have is either you're using one of the large models, so GPT-4 o1 from OpenAI, Llama from Facebook, um, Gemini from Google, which run on very powerful servers, but steal your data, or you have to run one on your computer. So I'm using a MacBook right now, so I have the tiniest version of the Llama model running locally. So people think, well, you have the only choice you have is the big brain from outside that vacuums the data, or the local one. Here, what we wanted to do is so we fine-tuned our own model from Llama 3, and we built our own ensemble of other models for video editing. But for the assistant, it means that you do have a big brain, but it's a big brain that does not phone home with your data. So it's accessible to you. It's very smart. It has the same uh, IQ as the like industry leading generalist ones. It's just that this one doesn't send the data away to its own planet.
Absolutely. What's your vision for the next 5 years, 10
Mhm.
years? Where are you going to take OneTake AI?
My big vision, which, so in the AI world, when you set a vision for 5 years, typically it happens in the next 12 months because the field is always accelerating. And as human, it's always hard to process how much acceleration we're getting. But the big vision where I want to go from the beginning, I've seen AI as the opportunity to be proactive. And today, most tools, when you use AI, it's still either a tool. So it's like you click a button in Photoshop and you say, add a tree here, and it adds a tree. Okay. The next level is what you would call the agent. So it's more like one take where you give the raw video and you say, well, please do the job for me. And it does all the work with the audio, the videos, the call outs, the titles. It does all the things that the full job of a human video editor would do. It does all of that and gives you the final result. So that's, I would say, like, let's call it level two. Level one was I do just one thing because I'm like a hammer. Level two is I am acting more like a contractor, and you've hired me to build this level of the house, and you just give me the mission, I'll do it. What I'm excited about is level three. Level three is having the AI be a proactive source of growth in your business. And we've been working on this because I think this is the next direction to take things. Um, in French, we have an expression which we call l'esprit d'escalier, which means literally it would mean having a staircase mind. And why we use this in France, it means there are people, I would say about half of people are like this, where you are at a party and maybe somebody says something funny, maybe they tease you, they have this little joke, and you're trying to think of a comeback and you're just stumped for words. And then 3 hours later, as you're leaving the party, going down the staircase, you think of that comeback and you're like, but everybody's already gone. It's too late. It's like 3 hours too late. And about half of people are like this, where you might not be able to have the witty repartee like people in Netflix shows, but if you have the time to think, then you're able to come up with something that's solid, well thought out, articulate. And right now, the way that most AI tools are is we're basically asking them to be extremely smart on the spot. So it's like they are forced to be a character in a Seinfeld episode, and they don't have, they're live in front of an audience, and they don't have the opportunity to think afterwards. What I've been working on is I've noticed that if you give the AI some time offline to think, so after you've given it the video, after you've asked in a chat for ideas for new products, things like that, if you give it some extra time after you're gone to think things through, then it's able to come up with proactive suggestions and actions that keep the business growing, that are not necessarily inside of the initial scope of what you knew to ask. And this, I believe, is an incredible opportunity, because now you go from I had bought a hammer to I hired a contractor to what if I had a business partner, and maybe most of the day they're just hanging out and learning the business and doing whatever I asked. But then at night and in the weekends, it's an entire second shift when they are thinking about ways to grow the business. They are initiating things that only wait for my approval to confirm the next morning. And this is going to be, I think, a game changer for a lot of businesses.
How does that work? So I hear you, right? Le prix d'escalier. Is that
L'esprit d'escalier.
l'esprit d'escalier?
Yeah.
uh, the staircase mind.
Mhm.
So that's me for sure. And I remember trying to, in the past, when I was interviewing for jobs or something,
Mhm.
they would say, tell us about you, and I would say, you get my work during the day, but what you don't see is what I think is my more important work, which happens, when I'm relaxing after work and when I'm sleeping, my brain is still working, you know?
Mhm.
So I think it's wonderful, first, that you have a phrase for that in French. And then also that you're thinking about this for AI, because I've noticed as well when you communicate with the AI, the intelligence that we get is very much it's fast, right? They deliver it immediately, but it is like an assistant, right? What it doesn't do is sort of naturally kind of push you forward, right? It sort of only rises to the level of the intelligence that it already had available. So, what I'm hearing from you is that if you give it some time, and it's able to do this sort of, um, you know, additional work that
Yes.
can help it to power some next steps in a way that it wasn't able to do. How is it
Mhm.
possible that the AI is doing this level of work? And then how do you encourage it to do that even more?
Okay, so without entering too much into like trade secret territory, okay, just keeping things simple to understand. Um, People need to understand. So different AI models work in different ways. But I'll take the analogy of the not the simplest, but the easiest to understand, which is a large language model type of model. So if you take a model like a GPT, which most language and voice today models are based on, then when you're chatting with one take chat or chat gpt or meta ai, um, what happens is you as a human have a continuous experience and it feels like you're having a continuous conversation with this ai. In reality, on a technical plane, it's not happening like that at all. So when you ask, um, please write me a Facebook ad for my 4-day online challenge, and you send this request. The request is encoded into vectors. Let's not go into the math there, but the request is encoded in a language that the AI can understand, sent to a server, and then on a uh, actual plane, what happens is this new instance of the model is launched, is processed against your request to produce a token, which is a bit of a word. So let's say a word, okay? So to produce the first word, and then the request and the first word are slammed again in the face of a brand new instance of the model to produce the second word, and then again and again and again. So from the model's perspective, it's more like the guy in Groundhog Day, where the model wakes up in the morning and they are given a sheet of paper that says, here's the list of instructions, here's what a version of you that you don't remember said in the past about this. And then it has maybe the first 13 words, and it's asked, please write the 14th word. And you write the 14th word, and then you disappear. And then a new version of you wakes up with no memory and is given the instructions and the first 14 word and asks for word 15. So we as humans, when we get the response, it feels to us as if we are interacted with this one AI that wrote this entire text, when in reality, the AI came up like a Tom Cruise in The Edge of Tomorrow and was resuscitated 3,000 times to write these 3,000 words. And when we send a reply to this and say, can you please now translate this into Spanish, we're not talking to the same AI again, we're talking to a brand new instance that is run 1,000 times. So this is how, so far, all of those models are implemented. And so you're not interacted with the model on your whole request or series of requests. But also a consequence of that is that when the last token is sent, which is an invisible token that says end of response, the model is vaporized, goes back to his sarcophage, and you have your reply, but there is nothing anywhere that is still aware that it had this interaction with Michael Trans. And so you had your reply, and we're done with you. That's what most AI systems do. Our insight there was to say, well, what if we kept the model alive, or at least kept instancing the model afterwards, after you're done with it, after you've logged out of our software, and we gave it some additional cycles of thinking through and trying to go. There are many expressions to say that, right? To go one more mile, one step beyond, to just try to provide
Yeah.
additional value that you didn't know to ask. Because I've taught many live online challenges how to use AI tools. And what I noticed is when most people try to use those tools for the first time, for the first month, they are mostly stuck because they don't know what to ask. And so the biggest mistake that people make with using AI tools is, I call that allowing the AI to give you homework. So it goes like this. You go on it and you're like, can you give me an idea of a marketing strategy I could use to grow my business? And first of all, you made the mistake of asking for one idea. You should never ask for one idea. You should ask for 7, 13, 19. Anything between 5 and 25 will give you the best results. Because if you ask for one of anything, like give me one title for this blog post, you will not get the best title. You would get the most obvious, the one that is, because that's how these AIs work. They will give you the most statistically likely answer. So you want to ask for 5 titles, and now let's say you ask for 5, you can pick one, or you can tell the AI to pick one. That's smarter. That's work for you. But what happens is people will say, give me one strategy. The AI would say, given your type of business, you might want to partner with a local businesses that sells to X type of audience. And then people will say, huh, this is smart. Okay, I'll do that. Now I just need to figure out one of those businesses and write the email, but thanks. And this is allowing the AI to give you homework, because you could just reply and say, okay, cool. What are those businesses? Like, give me a list. And then you could also say, okay, now that we've selected Tony's gym, can you please write me a draft of the partnership request that I'm gonna email them? Instead of me writing it and asking the AI to fix the grammar or improve it, I'm gonna ask it to write a draft. And I can also ask it to review the draft and suggest ways to improve it. Because if you remember how it's really built, and you remember that the way it's really built is we wake up this AI from its sarcophagus and we say, here's the instruction and what's been done so far, just write one more word. Then you realize, although it would be not perfectly productive to ask a high school student to write an essay and then review the essay themselves, because they they're too close to it to be able to review it. These AIs, when you ask them to review it and improve it, you're not literally asking the same individual. You're asking a newly awakened version of it to review the work that has been done by the old version of it a few minutes ago. And it's able of more of this feedback. The only thing that is you need to know is it is a little bit biased. So every AI, it's been interested in some recent studies that if you give those AIs text that they have written, well, their family of models versus another, they tend to prefer their own family. So if you have an essay written by one take, another written by ChatGPT, another written by Llama Facebook's AI, and you ask the AI to compare, GPT-4 will like the GPT-3 and GPT-4 essays more than it likes the Facebook essays because it looks like its own style more. This is an interesting bias that happens with AI. But if you ask it to fix it or improve it, it's able to do that.
That's fascinating. And we see this as humans sometimes, like if you talk to an artist and they're like, this is the way, how what they come up with. And then maybe you show them something, but also if you show a human artist, they might also value something that's very different from what they themselves could produce. And that's the value sometimes for, I think, a human artist, right? So it's interesting that the GPTs always seem to favor their own style a little bit.
Yeah, they
That's
favor their own, and it's what's also interesting is they favor not only their own style but also their family of models. So GPT-4 will prefer at equal levels of quality, of course. If you ask for a task that is very similar, it will prefer GPT-3 essay versus an essay written by Google Gemini, and vice versa.
well, as you're developing your business, right? And you mentioned partnerships, right?
Mhm.
What for you, if you could have the ideal partnership for One
Mhm.
Take AI in order to create your best vision for the future, what would be those ideal partnerships that you would love to have?
So one of the things that let me go one step back and give you a little bit of context. A couple months before getting started on the project for One Take, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a superstar developer, and we worked on a startup before. And he said, "I'm thinking of working on a startup again, and maybe I would like to sell to the same kind of people that your business, so my coaching business, sells to, like small businesses. What are possible ideas that you think are open in the market?" And I sat him down and I told him what 5 things that I believed were, I call them silver bullets, meaning it's a product that people want. They don't know they want it, but this is something that will solve an acute problem that doesn't yet have a all-in-one solution in the market. And there were 5 of them. And he took that under advisement for a bit on one of them, started with a co-founder on it, and it didn't work out. And in the end, he said, well, I don't want to do this startup stuff. And I was looking at my list, and I realized out of the 5, 4 of them were products that were significantly competitive with things that are already in the market. And the idea for One Take was something that was significantly complementary to things that were already in the market. And so that's why out of the 5 ideas, I brought those ideas. I believe that One Take was the one that had the most potential to be easy to get started. Because if I was starting in 2020 at the time, 2021, if you're starting a funnel builder or an email autoresponder, CRM, the uphill battle is there's 1,000 of those, of each. Um, you're in a market where these things already exist. You're not going to be able to partner with, you're not going to partner with Active Campaign to launch your own email CRM. Then they're just going to laugh you out of the door because you are competition. However, if you can look at an entire ecosystem and figure out something that would help everybody's customers, then you have something that's very valuable. And with One Take, we came in as a complement to tools like Hotmart, which is one of the biggest platforms for selling information products and online courses. So we are in their ecosystem. I've been invited to speak to their audience at their 8,000 people event in Brazil a couple of times, because like We are not a danger to them at all. We don't do the same thing, but their customers will get better results if they use us. One of the things I didn't mention is when you use one take to edit your videos, it also translates them so that somebody that's watching the video sees you speak in their own language. So Michael uploads a video in English, puts it on his website. If I, as a French person, go to the same page, I will see Michael speak French in his voice and his lips move along with the French words. And so this is a great complementary to a platform. Hotmart wants their people to go international. So we were a perfect complement for their audience to use the tool and sell internationally. We've been promoted by System.io, which is a landing page builder, because on those landing pages, people put video a lot. And if they struggle to create the sales video, then they will not create a sales funnel. So the more System.io can help people create more videos easily through recommending us, the more successful their customers will be, and so on. So to answer your question about what is a perfect partnership for us, is a company that has a large customer base of small businesses and entrepreneurs, preferably in the consulting coaches space, online content creators, people that sell online courses. And they have a platform where their users probably create a lot of video for social media, for sale, for marketing, and they can recommend us because we make that easier, so their customers become more successful and they make more money. This is one of the big ways that we've grown.
Yeah, there are, what comes to mind is, these some other businesses that blew up, during the COVID times,
Mhm.
or some of these like learning platforms. So
Mhm.
I'm just thinking of partnership ideas for you. So yeah, what was the learning platform that I saw everywhere? It was
Many of
Skillshare.
them.
I think it was
Ah,
Skillshare.
skill set. Okay. Mhm.
That became very popular during COVID and helped to launch some people's careers through that, like YouTubers who then
To create
went to
their
that
own
platform.
content and courses. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or do you ever like reach out to you know individual YouTubers as well? I wonder if that's something another way that maybe you could
That's something
connect.
that we want to grow. So at the time that we're recording this podcast, we're just starting right now to raise a seed round. So we're raising $1 million, well, €1 million, $1.05 million seed round right now. And so we're doing this because we want to expand, like, technologically. We have a very aggressive roadmap, but also because so we have a working formula from ads to demo webinar to yearly or quarterly subscription. So we need to add more fuel to that fire. And at the same time, we also want to grow new acquisition channels. As you mentioned, like influencers on YouTube and other social media is a channel that we want to grow. Um, Typically, they will charge for being featured on their channels. But now that we have this funnel where we can take, which we couldn't do initially, allow people to come in to try it for free on one video before they upgrade. This is something we built in the last year because, as I mentioned in the beginning, we first wanted to build the paid offer, and then later make it easier and easier for people to start with a lower and lower investment threshold, if you will. But most startups start the opposite way, and it's so much harder to climb from free to paid versus to start from paid and then try different ways of having people try it for free before they convert. So we did the second strategy.
Nice. And then so we, in these interviews we talk about finance, fitness, family, and fun.
Okay.
So let's move on to fitness for you because you're
Yay!
sitting at a desk.
This is great timing.
Uh,
This is great timing. I lost how is it in pound? I think 14. Let me just check. I was 14 pounds in the last 6.5 weeks. So it's good that you're asking me now.
Absolutely. Let's hear your fitness secrets. How did you lose 14 pounds as an entrepreneur who sits at the desk so much of their time?
Let me just see if it's confirmed. Yes, it's 14.3 pounds. Um, since yeah, just 6.5 weeks. Um, what happened is, so I've had many businesses over the years. Well, I'm wearing a very large hoodie, so I look like I take a ton of space, but I'm actually very slim now. Um, I weigh 170 pounds, and I ended the summer at 185. I'm just converting in real time because I'm thinking in kilos. When I started One Take, I had an existing business that was doing seven figures, and I was living on the west coast of France in a nice city called Nantes. But I was really miserable with the weather there. I was just in the middle of getting separated from my ex-wife, and navigating this plus starting the business was very stressful. Being very stressed is a easy way to get to comfort eating. So at some point, I realized that I was growing as much as my business was growing, and I had to be careful with that. And also, the main thing that impacted my fitness there was after we moved out from our house. So I helped my ex-wife um, move into a nice other house, but for me, I didn't really know where I wanted to live. And so I lived in hotels, going from conferences to business meetings to masterminds. Uh, I lived in hotels for a long time. What prompted me to actually stop is one day I checked in at a Marriott to go to a mastermind event. And the lady at the desk says, "Oh, welcome back. Do you want to have free breakfast or 1,000 points per day?" And I'm like, "Why would I just get free breakfast?" And she's like, "Oh, because you're a Marriott Platinum Elite, whatever, superstar, mega ninja, something." And I'm like, "How come?" And she's like, "Because you've stayed with us so many weeks. I had stayed just that year so many weeks at Marriott that I could probably claim that I was a legal resident of Marriott and no longer pay taxes in France and just pay taxes directly to Marriott." And I realized, my God, like I've been living there, not just traveling. And all the time I was living there, I was eating room service food, which was not great. So I lived for a while then I moved. I actually like stayed in Barcelona for a while. Um, I started. I took on Krav Maga. I passed the first couple levels, so I'm deep yellow level because there are several yellow levels. I'm trying to go for my orange belt this year, and I started doing this, and I did the first class, and the female instructor arrives, and she says, "We're gonna do a warm up." I could not finish the warm up. I was passed out on the floor for half an hour, just trying to recover my spirits. And she's looking over me, and she's like, "Dude, it's the warm up. It's like we have not started training. You got to do something now." I realized, okay, oh my God, I really need to get started. So initially, I only did that, like 2 classes a week. I was doing one-on-one classes. I did that for about a year. I had a girlfriend who was very into exercising, so she also had me like get started doing the weights. And what happened is I stayed in Madrid for a while. So I've been in Madrid for the last 8 weeks, and my good friend, who's also a business owner, that I've been spending time with him, and he trains with a guy here that does calisthenics and is a force of nature. And so we've been doing 4 trainings per week, very intense. I'm speaking today. So today is Friday. So 2 days ago on Wednesday, I'll just tell you this is what we did because we could not do a proper training. Okay. Usually we train in a park that has all kinds of calisthenics, the bars and all of the stuff. It was raining, all the parks were closed. So what we did is he said, well, we're just going to do something. It's not a real training, but it's just to keep you moving. And he turns to Steve, so my friend, and he says, okay, you're going to do, so see where we are. And there's this bench about 12 yards from here. For any non-Americans, this is 12 meters. So that would be 35 feet, 36 feet from there. And he says, Steve, you're going to do 10 push-ups. And you go one step forward. So you step one step forward, and you do 15. And then you step forward, and now you do 20. And you keep going until you reach the bench. And then he turns to me, and he's like, okay, Sébastien, let's go. So you do 10 squats, like deep squats. You go really low and back up, and you do 10. One step forward, you do 20, and you keep going. So I go 10, da, 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 one step, da, 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 20, one step, da, 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 30. And he says, why are you stopping? I'm like, well, I did 10, 20, 30, like Steve. He said, no, no, no. You double every time. What you mean? Well, you go 10, 20. This one is 40. And I'm like, wait, so you mean the next one is 80? He's like, yeah, yeah. And then what? 160. So I did 10 and 40, and then one step 80, one step 160. And I'm like, this bench is so far. Oh my God. So I'm trying to do the biggest steps I can. Like I'm trying to do practically the splits to try to go as far as I can, but I can only do one step. You cannot jump, it's forbidden. And I did 10, 20, 30, 80, 160, 320, which beat the record of his students because I did without a break. And then one more step, and I was going for 640, but we were interrupted by the park staff who said, "Guys, what are you doing here? It's raining. You gotta go." So we were doing under the rain. So I only did another 320, and then he says, well, they kicked us out. So when you go home, you still need to do 150 push-ups and do as many. And I did as many squats that were left to do, a total of 1,000 for a day. So that was my not really a real training, quoting Mauro, uh, day on Wednesday. It's been
That's a
working.
good workout.
That was a good workout.
When I think of calisthenics, I think of like jumping jacks.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think of push-ups and squats
No, it's
because I always do push-ups and squats, but I never think of that as calisthenics.
Yeah, there's also all the pull-ups, muscle-ups, all the figures that you can do on the bars. Um, and I'm really new to this. Like I enjoy working out in a gym with machines. In a way, if I was going to train alone, so if I was not here with my friend and his trainer that's training me too, I would just go like I was doing for earlier this year before I was here. Um, on my own, I prefer a gym and machine specifically rather than free weights because there's zero mental energy spent. And because I spent so much mental energy with the business already, just running it, hiring people, raising money, doing the sales, doing product, I really I would just hate it to go there and then figure out the dumbbells, which weight am I doing? I don't know. So I have this app on my phone that's free where I track my exercises. I go to the same machine. I increase the weight every time by a little bit. I increase the series a little bit. But here, having the coach is also a way that you're hiring out the mental drain of figuring things out. So he just tells me, right now you do 100 squats, and then you're gonna do 50 push-ups, and I just do this. I don't answer back. I just do it. There's zero mental energy spent, so most of the energy remains in the muscles that are solicited. And now they tricked me because I didn't want to. keep doing calisthenics after I reach my physical goals. But then there's this one scene that I saw this in a James Bond movie. I can't remember which one. I think it's maybe the one with Pierce Brosnan, Die Another Day. I think it's in this one where he's running behind the plane, and of course the plane is taking off without him. It's like one of these big cargo planes, and the cargo hold is still open. And the way I remember it, he jumps and catches the lip of the cargo hold, okay, and he's trying to get inside. He turns back, so his back is now to the hold, and then he flexes his arms, raises his legs straight, his legs go over the hold, and then he bends with his abs so that his whole body goes inside. And so I was telling them about the movie, and they're like, well, yeah, that's easy. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, you stay here, you do another couple of months of calisthenics, you're going to be able to do this. And now that I know that it's physical, and I didn't think it was real, and then he showed me on the bar, like, yeah, I'm like, now that I know that humans can do this, this was not visual effects from a movie. I'm very tempted to stay with calisthenics a little bit more until I can do the Pierce Brosnan, or maybe it was Mission Impossible. I don't know. I just want to do it.
That's a great goal. So I always I always think of like how, because I love movies too,
Yeah.
and I always think of how does it benefit me as an entrepreneur to ever, you know, in any other way than fun, to watch movies and enjoy movies. But now you showed me that you can have a fitness goal from
Based
watching a
on
James
actual
Bond or
movie.
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that the regularity of doing the workouts, and if you're doing any kind of hypertrophy training, meaning training either for physique or training for strength, then the big principle is basically every week you're doing progressive overload. So, and I did this before I lived in hotels for so long and lost everything, but I knew this and I've done this before, and now I'm just back on track. Okay. And when the principle of progressive overload is, maybe today your body is only able to do one pull up, and this is it. But maybe next week you can do one pull up and like half of one, or you can do maybe five more if we add some bands. But the following week you can do two real ones and then a few more with the elastic bands and so on. If your lifting weights is the same, maybe you can. When I started, the very first time I started doing bench press, I could only bench press the bar. When I was 24 or something, and I could barely bench press the bar. I was so weak. But the next week, you can bench press the bar with one of those tiny little weights that don't look like they add anything. And before you know it, you're able to bench press 40 kilos, and then 60, and then 80. And the thing is, the only way you progress is every week you add a little bit more, which means that there's something here that I think applies to business. If you're doing progressive overload, what is frustrating is that it is always as hard. Like every single week is super hard. It doesn't get easier because since you're making the session harder, the weights are bigger, or you have to do more reps, then the total difficulty level remains the same for you. You are just becoming a stronger person. I think there are two things. This one is the first, and it applies to business as well. When I was starting my first business, making 3 grand in euros, which about, I don't know, 5 grand in dollars at the time, a month was a huge task. And then a few years later, I was running $1 million business. And so making 100 grand a month was just as hard as it was at the beginning making ends meet with 3 grand. It's just that I had more business muscle, so I was able to create a bigger result. So that's the first thing, is like difficulty stays the same. If you want to keep growing, if you are willing to stay the same, then things will get easier and easier. If you don't want to grow anymore because you're just lifting the same weight, it's going to be just routine, super easy. The second thing, and this is, so the first one was frustrating, but the second one is rewarding, is the fact if you do progressive overload, it means that almost every single week, you're basically setting a new personal record, because the weight is just a little bit higher than last week. The number of reps is just a little bit higher than last week. Maybe you just do one more. So 8 weeks ago, I could not do more than 25 squats in a row. And 2 days ago, I did 320 in a row. So this is the new personal record. But every time in between that I ever did squat, it was also a personal record. And this is very gratifying, to always feel like at this point, it is hard. It's always been this hard. However, I am being my best. And I think in business, it is the same thing. Today, running one take is super hard. I'm running a tech business in the AI field. Everything's going so fast. You feel like if you blink, the market will have changed again. So you have to keep up with everybody's innovations, what's going on in the market, how do we market our own new features. So it feels like it's hard. However, at the same time, given our valuation right now for the round that we're raising, this is my personal best so far. And I know that within a year, it will be just as hard, but the business will be even bigger. We can 10x in a year again. And then this is also something that gives like heart to keep going.
That's very interesting correlation with the trainer having you do double every time you take a step, and then the same demands that you're making on your business, you want to 10x,
Ah,
right? So it's a multiple. You're not just adding 100, 200, 300 more customers. You want to go from 3,000 to 30,000.
yeah. 50,000 is the goal actually for next year. So let's wish me that.
50,000 is the goal, and not one less.
Not one less.
So what do you eat now? You're off the hotel food.
Yes.
How are you? Because I think eating is also very important to fitness. So what are you eating now that's helping you stay fit?
So that was difficult because I have the Venn diagram of the things that I want to eat and why I want to eat them became narrower as I knew myself and my goals a bit more. The biggest transformation in my life happened in 2015. Before 2015, so I turned 30 in 2015. Before that, I used to eat breakfast the way I learned at home in Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, which is the Western breakfast with you got your milk. And in Guadeloupe, this is very specific. My dad used to do so condensed milk with added water, not like milk from a carton. So it's already super sweet because it's condensed, like sweet condensed milk with water added to be the consistency of normal milk. And then we would add the breakfast chocolate powder, which is itself 80% sugar. And then I would add the breakfast cereal, the Kellogg's Extra, which is the ones with the nuts and the chocolate and the oats, and so fat and sweet. And then I would scoop these out with toasted brioche with a spread of Nutella on it. And that was what I was eating for years when I was a single guy, when I got married. I was eating this for breakfast. And I didn't know why. After breakfast, I already felt like going back to bed. And I never knew why. And then what happened is a good friend of mine, a Brazilian entrepreneur extraordinaire, Erico Rocha, he lived in Barcelona at the time. And he told me about these two amazing things. One was called bulletproof coffee, and the second was called the keto diet. And he said you might want to try that, because the idea of being on a keto diet, if you it's not for health reason, is that your brain, when you wake up, craves lipids. Is a very fast way for your brain to get energy. um, it will not get your body stuck into digesting sugar and having these spikes of blood sugar. And he said you might find it useful for your focus and your mental capacity. And I tried it, and it fit me like a glove. Like, just from day, it was a night and day transformation, because overnight I was much more energetic in the morning. I had the capacity to focus that I didn't have before. So I wrote my two best books actually on this diet, because I was able to uh, wake up, go for a run. I'm the slowest runner in the world. Old ladies pushing strollers pass me by on foot as I'm running. So I was able to run. And then come back home, sit in front of the computer, and type for 4 hours, be super focused, not feel hunger, not feel the 11 a.m. Appetite, and then still do the rest of my work day after writing. And so I eat very low carbs. I had this brief period between having my beautiful daughter Alice and living in hotels, where I was no longer doing keto, and I was really having a hard time focusing. I was gaining weight. I was feeling no energy to work out and things like that. As soon as I went back to very low amounts of carbs per day, I went back to having this focus and energy again. Um, I eat organic, which is a personal choice. Don't buy any meat. I don't have anything against like eggs and cheese. I eat lots of those, but I don't buy any meat for myself. So what happened is, once we moved out of the house and we live separately, me and my ex-wife, it's funny because we both almost became vegetarians on our own. It's like, if I'm making my own choice when I'm buying, I wouldn't feel like buying meat. And it's the same for her. And somehow we lived together and we ate meat all the time. But as soon as we didn't live together and we like each made our own food choices, we were like, not interested in ground beef anymore. Um, and so it was kind of complicated for me for a while, about a year ago, when I was trying to figure out, okay, if you don't want to eat meat, so you want to have a high protein diet because you want to exercise, be stronger, gain muscle, um, but you don't want to eat meat. You have to get the protein from somewhere. And at the same time, if you don't want to eat carbs, so you cannot do like legumes and grain to get that protein, which is a typical way you would do that as a vegetarian. You just eat cereals and legumes to get the right combination. You can't do that. No carbs. You don't want to eat super transformed products, so you don't want to have just tons of protein, artificial things. It becomes hard. It becomes so hard. So I ate a bunch of nut-based things, tons of almond powder, and was gaining weight twice as fast then. And now I found my rhythm. So basically, per day I eat about 13 different fruits and vegetables. I make myself a big, very weird kind of omelette that has leek, two types of onion, how do you say that? Zucchini, tomato, eggs, and cheese. Little bit of Tabasco, little bit of chili. That's what I eat for lunch. For dinner, I have a yogurt and some vegetable protein powder. I couldn't, I couldn't get the right amount of protein without some protein powder. And I make a big half liter. So how many ounces is that? I have no idea. 16 ounces of veggie juice with spinach, a quarter of an apple, one whole lemon, some ginger, a vegetable that I don't know how you say in English, but luckily Deepo will tell me. Chard, Swiss chard, um, cucumber. So yeah, so basically what I did is I looked at the entire vegetable aisle and I looked at everything that was not a very high carb vegetable. So not potatoes, not carrots, things like this. And I said, okay, I'm gonna have some of all of those that are not carbs based every day. And then I'm gonna figure out the protein and the rest will work itself out. So I have all the micronutrients I need. I have the right total macros. Um, and from doing the exercise, then that's how I started. So I gained a lot of muscle also in the last 8 weeks, as I was also losing the fat. So I have a specific goal, which I have 10 weeks left for to see my 8-pack again, because I could see it in 2017 when I was waiting for the birth of my daughter. So I'm on track for this.
Amazing. I've never ever had any kind of 6 pack or 8 pack or anything ever. So I'm happy for you
Thank you.
because you're able to achieve this. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so you what weight will you be down to at that time?
I think I will be down to about 75 kilos, which is 165 pounds, I
160
think.
pounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been slimmer than that. So when I was just when I was very young, I attended a Tony Robbins seminar for the first time, and when I got out of there, I decided. So that was 20 years ago, I think, something like that, like a long time. When I attended this, I had no idea about food at all, but I just decided I wanted to be a vegetarian. And the way I did that at the time was just remove all meat-based things from your, like all animal-based things from your alimentation, but I didn't add anything instead. So I dropped weight like crazy. I went from 100, and I was 165 pounds then, just a skinny fat guy. And I went to, how many is that in pounds? I lost 12 kilos. I went to 100, under 140, and I'm 6 foot 2. So what happened is I was saved by the fact that I was recording a monthly DVD at the time, and I saw the tape. I saw the master for the upcoming DVD before we shipped it, and I looked at it and I was like, "This guy looks like he's dying of cancer," and that's me. And so we're gonna do two things. A, we're not gonna sell this DVD. We're gonna reshoot it in a few weeks, and B, I'm gonna start figuring out my food now because this is crazy. I'm losing too weight too fast. So I've gone so the extreme. I know that I've been this light, and I know that this is like not where I want to be. I know that at 165, I've been well. When I was doing keto for the first time within 2 years, I figured out that I had the 8-pack. I cannot tell you. I was like, I have 8. I didn't know it was possible. I had no muscle, but I was skinny enough that you could see the 8. And so now what I'm trying to do is to go back to roughly there, um, so I can have my 8-pack again so before my 40th birthday. That would be great. But at the same time, I also want to be like, now that I've learned and understood so many more things, I want to be in so more healthy and strong as well. Because being a dad, like it really clicked for me. There was a point where I realized, well, I'm raising this little girl, and my daughter she's really lightweight kid, just like her mom. And so when Cecile, which is my ex-wife, when she brought my daughter to do the yearly visit with the doctor, and she said, "Well, she's tiny. She's the tiniest of her class, blah blah blah." And the doctor looked her up and down and said, Well, when you see the cake mold, you see the cake. And he meant, so he is 5 feet 100 pounds. It's like, well, your daughter is probably going to grow to be exactly the same size. And so I started doing Krav Maga because I wanted to be a strong dad. Then my daughter wanted to do it, so now she's 7. So she's doing a watered down, adapted version of the classes for her age. Like, she's not doing like fighting and punches, but just to learn to be more confident in her body and around other kids. Because when she was in school at the very beginning, she was getting pushed around a lot because she was like this tiny kid that like the big other guys don't care about. Um, and so yeah, I have healthier goals than I had before.
Absolutely. And this is a perfect transition. So I think we're talking now about the family part of things. So what's the impact on your life, right? You're a dad now and you're an entrepreneur. And tell me about your family goals. Tell me how things have changed and what you're enjoying now.
Okay. Couple of things. Well, what things have changed? Huge things have changed. Like, it's not the same at all to be single with a business. Well, I've always been with a business. So I've been single with a business, in a couple with a business, married with a business, a dad with a business, a divorced, like a single dad with a business. So there's one constant. It was not the same business over the years. So one of the major reasons that I started this specific current business, which is One Take AI, so deciding to take on two things, a tech startup and AI business, is directly related to me being a father, because I realized that I wanted to provide my daughter with the safety, like the financial security of having something that is valuable, that's not very dependent on me. My previous business was a 7-figure business, but was highly personality driven. So, in the case of my demise, it would be worth a limited amount of money. And so I decided, well, maybe I want to do something that has a higher multiple and is more valuable, um, as a family things to own, versus something that's just me speaking on camera. So that was the tech aspect, because it's more scalable. The free entrepreneur movement, I could grow it to multiple 7 figures, but there was kind of a ceiling there. Whereas One Take can grow to hundreds of millions, because that's the potential when you're addressing all business owners in the world that do video. Going into AI came from the fact that in 2021, I identified that AI was going to be the single major change coming to our society, and would create a lot of uncertainty, a lot of societal instability also. And in those situations, it's better to be in the know and understand what's going on, and to have a say, maybe even if it's a tiny say. Like, we are nowhere near the scale of how much OpenAI can steer the whole industry. But at least we are a participant in the game. So we get to shape a tiny corner of the territory of where things are going. Just like I said earlier, the idea of having those containers means that, at least for people that know we exist, they know that it's possible to use very powerful AI that doesn't just steal all your secrets. Okay, so we are at least able to effect some change at our scale, and we hope the scale will be much bigger. But even if it's not billions of people and just tens of millions of businesses, it's already like a significant thing we can bring to the market. So I identified this is the field you want to be in, because it's the one that's going to disrupt things. So I'd rather be on the side that knows what's happening, so that I can plan ahead for my family and be a force to protect them, advise them, bring that value. So that was probably the major two reasons to go into this field were directly driven from family choice, like thinking ahead as a dad. How I structure it is also largely influenced. So we talked a lot. I have very good relationship with Alice's mother, my ex-wife, because we went into like couples therapy before we decided to break up, and one of my good friends is one of the most famous trainer of therapists in the US. And so thanks to her, sorry, um, like I was able to get the best advice, the best connection with like and get really helps. So we ended up having a fantastic connection as friends. And so when we looked at how we wanted to structure, how do you say, custody, right? Like, how do we want this to go? We align on how we want her to be raised. Most of the typical models don't work for us because we couldn't do half a week, half a week. I don't want to live in Nantes. We couldn't do weeks versus weekends, which would be quite unfair to the person doing the weeks in the sense that they don't get to enjoy the weekend. We couldn't do 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Like all of these standard boxes did not work for us. What ended up working for us, which we made our own recipe, I don't know other people doing it, but it's a great recipe, is I have Alice 10 days a month. I go get her there and then I bring her back with me wherever I am in the world. And we spend the week together. And because I'm running my own business, I'm actually on that week, I'm very available to my daughter. I do not take any calls and meetings. I don't do podcast interviews. I don't do team meetings. Um, and so I built the business in a way that I work really, really hard in these weeks where I'm alone. And when I have my daughter, she's my priority. So in total, she sees me way more than a typical girl sees her dad, because typical girl sees her dad like when he's back from work in the evenings. Maybe he gets her to school in the morning. That's mostly it. And here we are able to have like all these amazing adventures and getting her to know the history of all these places and learning a new language, taking the exercise classes with me. So yeah, we have our little like traditions. She has her set of like plush toys and things that are with me that I have to travel with from place to place. And yeah, so we've arranged this way so that a lot of my life is arranged around making Alice happy and giving her a fantastic childhood and making sure that she's just a happy child and becomes a happy adult. We had lots and lots of like conversations, figuring things out as parents to figure out how things would work together and also how it would work in school. So when I have her, so every day we do like school at home with dad as well, doing exercises of learning, of writing, of science. Yeah, that's how we structured it.
That's phenomenal. I think one of the things that entrepreneurs might get stuck in terms of the family bucket
Mhm.
is wondering how would it be possible if they were to succeed with a goal of, because I've talked to some who are like, I wish I could have a family. I don't know how to do it as an entrepreneur. So what we're seeing with you, Sebastian, is a wonderful example for entrepreneurs where they could see like, yes, it is possible, as you said, to have your entrepreneurial business while, of course, being single, but then while being a couple, while being married, while having a wife and child, and then even as a single dad, it can work in all of those situations.
Mhm.
uh, and all of and in this way, I think people don't have to be as scared. What would you say to them if they're listening right now and they're like so scared to take that leap?
You mean to parents that are scared of starting their own business?
To have a family, to get married, to have a child, all the
Ah, you
fears they
mean
might.
the opposite. You mean to entrepreneurs that are scared to start a family?
Yes.
Okay, so these are two very different answers. That is going to be interesting. To parents that are anxious about starting a business, it's probably easier in that direction than to entrepreneurs that are anxious about starting a family. Um, I'll say this. I have been an entrepreneur since I was 21, like officially. Even when I was in high school, I was selling like calculator, computing programs for your calculator in high school. But I started my first business, I was 21. I've been a business owner since. I have been a partner in multiple businesses. I've coached 300,000 businesses in 41 countries. And still, business is a metaphor. It's not, it's only real in our minds. I remember I had a coach when I was launching one of my most ambitious projects. It was in 2012. And I was on the phone with my personal coach, and I was telling her, uh, I feel like the whole boat is sinking. I'm trapped in it, and she says, "Stop." I said, "What?" She said, "Look around." And I'm on the phone. I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Are you on a sinking boat?" I'm like, "No, of course. I'm on a villa on the beach on the west coast of France. This is a metaphor." And she says, "So you're not on a sinking boat. Okay, what is your business?" I said, "Well, my business is blah, blah, blah." He said, "No, your business is a couple of pieces of paper that you filed at the French business office. It's a couple of numbers on the bank's Excel file of customers. It's a bunch of emails. It's not a real thing." So the amount of stress that you want to assume related to your business is purely a choice, because it's only real because we assign it some meaning and consequences and things like that, but it's not as real as your family is. So I will say this to someone that's in either case. I have one and I don't know about the other. I have a family and I don't know about starting a business. I have a business and I don't know about starting a family. You have to realize that they live on two very different planes. If there was ever a choice to make between one or the other, uh, it's a personal choice. I would choose my family because my family is real. Um, my business is real in the sense that is a common, we agree on this hallucination of this, okay? And we agree that it belongs to Sebastian and his co-founder Vladimir, and we agree that so the product is a real thing, but the business is like, it's in our minds. It's in the business register. It's a paper, and so if you're torn, you just have to understand that since they don't live on the same plane, you can enjoy both without one being a danger to the other, because your family is going to be a set of actual humans, and your business is something that you can build around the actual humans to make your family life happy. So if you have the family, you can make them happier by being a business owner than you can by being an employee, because you will be freer, you will be more flexible on your time. If you decide to be, I've always chosen to be. Some people just choose to be like, "Oh no, I can't on Saturday. I'm super busy. I have a customer meeting." It's like, who set your schedule to have this customer meeting on Saturday? You did. You're the business owner. Just decide that you never take business meetings on Saturdays, and the problem is solved. Um, And I went to an event when I was very young, second year of my business. Went to an event in the US, in Florida, and I sat next to a person that made me do this exercise of just having a, uh, a meeting in my Google Calendar from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. every day. It's a meeting with myself, and I'm allowed to eat, I'm allowed to have a nap, I'm allowed to do whatever I want. Nobody else is allowed to infringe on it. And he said, do the experiment for 4 weeks. I've been keeping this experiment going since 2009. Nobody books anything with me between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And so it's been like 15 years because I own the business, I decide. So when you decide as a business owner that you feel ready to have a family, you need to understand a couple of things. One, you can modify your business in any way, shape, or form you want or need to make the family work. Two, it's going to be very hard. So you have to be ready for the fact that it's going to be harder than you think. And I'll tell you, for me, it was the hardest thing. Like having a baby, the pregnancy was a difficult time. And then for the whole first year, my daughter did not sleep a single full night. Her record was one time in the whole year she slept 5 hours in a row. And I remember because her previous record was she slept once 3 times in a row. Those were the only 2 times in a year that she slept more than 3 hours. Other than that, she would sleep 2 cycles of 45 minutes typically, and then wake up and cry. So at the end of year one, uh, both me and my then wife were completely like zombified. The only reason why my business was still running profitable at that time was that I anticipated the whole year after, once I knew that I was going to be a dad, I prepared the business so that I could work 1 day a week once my daughter was born. And so for her first 2 years, I only worked on Thursdays. That was it. And my business, I was running a business that was doing 1 million a year, more, a bit more. And I was working on Thursdays. Finally, luckily, in the second year, we finally discovered uh, like a method for that helps kids to sleep. I'll find the English title for this book. It's like literally, we bought a book under the recommendation of someone from, I'm trying to find her name, Walgreen, I think, Anna Walgreen. The book in French is Au dodo les petits. I'm going to try to find English title. Um, she was a Swedish author, and her book. I'm looking for the English. There's all the Swedish titles. Thank you, Wikipedia. You're not helping at all. Well, if you look for her, you will find her. And yeah, in 4 days, we went from my daughter is not sleeping ever to she's doing 12-hour.
For the love of children.
Yes, I think that's the title. Yes, correct. No, 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 no. That's her like how to raise a kid book. No, it's a good night's sleep. I found it.
A Good Night's
Good night's
Sleep
sleep, published in
by
2009.
Anna Waldron.
Yeah. Well, if anyone that's listening is a parent and you have a kid that's not doing their nights, uh, please, please, please give yourself the gift of buying this book. It's only 4 days. Like literally, the method is 4 days. It's the only thing that's complex is she says basically one parent is going to do what she says at night, so they have to be awake for the whole night. So the other parent should be somewhere else. So what we did is we had the hotel room for 4 days, and one of us would be in the house with Alice doing use the method for the night. That was me. My wife was sleeping at the hotel, and then we would switch. So this hotel was like there was a guy and a girl, but they don't stay with each other. They're like they do like turns sleeping in the hotel. So I was sleeping in the hotel by day. It was incredible, and then I recovered my sleep. Best book recommendation I ever received. So try it. So I'm just
Fantastic.
saying. it is going to be harder than you think. It is going to be more rewarding than you think. Um, for entrepreneurs, I know from several of them, especially men, that babies are not like super engaging. They're not engaging with you at the beginning at all. Like, I want to eat, I'm going to poop. Every time that I can that you haven't secured me in diapers, I'm going to poop. I'm going to, like, yeah, it's going to be tough. However, there's a threshold where, I'm saying this specifically for entrepreneurs because I've seen this a lot with friends where as soon as their kids start to be able to start engaging and having conversation, like in the oftentimes it's like the 4 to 6 year old range. Sometimes it's earlier, it depends on the kid and the parent. But then it becomes like so fulfilling because you can see them growing through, understanding things, having conversations with you, being funny, and also if you take the time to explain stuff as a parent versus telling stuff, it makes such a huge difference. I'm talking about the difference between telling the kid, you're in a park, don't go on the grass, versus saying, Alice, have a look. In this park, they have ducks that live on the grass and they are very afraid of people. And so we are not going to go on the grass because it would scare the ducks. And we want the ducks to be happy and raise their little family. And then with the second option, she's not going to go on the grass. With the first option, is just like a random rule that adults are boring and say stuff. So I'm going to go because I want to play with the ducks. Um, and so, yeah, there's a point where it shifts from gotta do the diaper things for the whole day again, especially if you're like me and you only work 1 day a week, which means you're on diaper duty 6 days a week, versus yeah, let's have fun.
And speaking of fun, so tell me about the most fun you have. Like, what's the most fun you've had recently? Like, what do you do for fun now?
Okay, so there's two things. There's time with my daughter, where the most fun we'll have is we just play a lot, invent plays. We have our traditional like pizza night where we make the pizza. So the game is, I just take everything that's on the fridge and in the cupboards, and I say, "What do you want to put in the pizza today, Alice?" Sometimes we made some very interesting combinations of things, and she'll say, "Well, let's see if we take those cookies and we crunch them, and we put them in the pizza crust, and then we take some apples with cucumber and peppers." And I'm my challenge as a cook is to make her ingredients work together. So that's always a lot of fun, especially since usually there will be some poor victim that is like a friend that's here or a girlfriend of mine and has to eat whatever pizza we make. So we tend to have lots of fun. But if I'm just me, salsa dancing, which I've resumed doing and used to be my big passion, is an endless source of fun. It's like when I'm dancing, my soul is happy. So
How did you find salsa dancing before you knew you loved
mhm.
salsa dancing? How did you find it?
I was forced to do it against my will. And I'm not even joking. So this was 2005, I believe. Yes, I was studying as in one of the French Ivy League equivalent engineer school in Centrale, and I was the DJ there. So there was three of us. We were the official DJs for everything the school was doing, and they had just bought a very expensive sound system. And one day, one of the students comes to me and says, I want to organize salsa classes in the school with a teacher. However, the school says that because they have all of this new sound system, either one of the DJs has to be there, or he, the student, has to write a personal guarantee check for $5,000. And when you're a student, you don't want to write a $5,000 check that if some idiot steps on the wires and breaks everything, you're liable for it. So he came to me and said, would you mind being there when we do the salsa classes? I said, yeah, just fine. I will bring a book. So I'm setting up everything. I open my book and I'm listening to them, and they're going 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and I'm thinking, first of all, these people are idiots. They can't even count. And I couldn't even believe that people go and take dancing classes. Like, what a terrible way to waste your time. And I'm reading my book. After a while, somebody, like, there's a shadow over my book, and I look up, and it's the salsa teacher. His name is Ishan. And he says, nobody sits when I'm giving a salsa class. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, yeah, I'm giving salsa class, you have to either dance or you go. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, dude, if I go, you don't have any music for a salsa class. So you better like find a better way to talk to me. And basically, I didn't want to just stomp out. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give your class a try, like a serious try. I'm going to try it for 4 weeks. If I hate it, which I can foresee that I will, then I will not come back and you will have no music. Otherwise, I can just take the classes and you just give me the classes for free, and I'll be there and set up the music and everything. So I did it. I did the first class, and first week I did not understand anything. I was stepping on everybody's feet. When everybody is moving left, I'm moving right. I was bumping elbows with everyone, and I hated it. I came back the second week though, because I had promised I would do 4. I came back the second week and I hated it even more. And I somehow got even worse at it. Like, I was almost upside down compared to everybody. It was the most awful experience you could imagine. I'm halfway through. I hate it. I suck at it. And I'm like, why did I ever say I would do 4? But I come back for the third. And I come back for the third. And at some point, even when you're a geeky guy in an engineering school, just math, if you look just at math, then you realize that any place that has more than 50% girls is better than the rest of engineering school. And it took me 3 weeks to figure it out. I'm like, just because you change partners all the time. I'm like, just in those 3 hours of classes, I've met more girls than I did in a long time. So I'm doing this. And also I'm starting to like the music. Everybody's happy, smiling. I'm starting to like it. There's just one issue. I'm still getting worse. So I like it. I'm just terrible. I'm the most awful salsa dancer that ever had like valid human with 2 arms and feet, and somehow I can't make them work together. And then I come back on the 4th week, and in the middle of the class, I'm taking the class and trying to figure things out. And I'm not kidding. This actually happened. This is a large hall that has a skylight at the top. And Nantes is a very cloudy city, so it's always cloudy. But I'm taking the class, and in the middle of the class, I am not joking, it actually happened. There's a break in the clouds, and there's this ray of light that comes on me, just like where I'm dancing. And it feels like this moment of revelation, just exactly at the moment where I get it. I'm dancing, and before I was stepping on everybody's feet, and right that moment I get the whole mambo, cucaracha, dilekeno, dame, and chufa. It's just like works. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Oh my god, I just did it. Dame, fly uno, and chufa. I'm like, wow, this is my thing. And this 4th class is where it changed. So after this fourth class, I took classes every week. I went to bars. In the summer, when I was doing my internship and all of my friends were away, I went to salsa every night from Tuesday to Saturday, because I knew nobody else than the people dancing salsa. And I improved so much. And a year later, I was a finalist at the Dublin International Salsa competition. From being forced, I went from being like dragged there against my will to just loving it. 2 years later, I was starting my own salsa school. Um, and yeah, the rest is history.
That's amazing. It's amazing you found that. And that even now, right after all those other businesses have happened and all the other life events, starting a family, having a child, and now, even now, with your free time, you're
Mhm.
still you're still going to salsa for fun.
Yeah, it is great fun. And once you really are immersed into it, you can do it without thinking, which is the most enjoyable because then you're just having fun. You're not thinking one, two, three, five, six, seven, which steps or whatever.
Yes, yeah, you lose the math goes away at some point, and then it's you piloting your body along with all the others, and you're all with music,
Exactly.
to inspire all the movement, the musicality of your body. It's a wonderful way to spend your time for so many things and so much fun. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. And where can people find you, Sebastian, if they want to work with you, if they want to buy one take AI subscriptions? How do they find you?
So first of all, there's our main website, which is simply onetake.ai. Um, if somebody wants to give it a try before they go into the subscriptions, so the main website has everything, FAQ, pricing. But if you want to just try it without a credit card, we have a new page which is try dot onetake.ai, so you can try it by yourself. Um, and then we're just starting our own presence on Instagram and YouTube. So by the time people watch this podcast, they'll be able to search for us on Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, and so if you go through our website, onetake.ai, there's you can just contact us and me just straight from the website.
Sebastian, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I've really enjoyed and appreciated and felt like I got so much from all your stories and all your entrepreneurial adventures and learning about learning about you as a person and how you think. And it's been really terrific. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Sebastian.
Michael. I really enjoyed being on your podcast. And one of the things that, if I may add just one word, is that what I liked a lot about your approach is that by focusing on those four F's, you give people a vision that being an entrepreneur or being successful financially is just a part of having this amazing, fun, loving life, healthy as well because you have fitness in there. And I think most people believe that this balance is not achievable, or they think that it can only be achieved as an employee because then you have the security of that and you can focus on the family side. But actually, your podcast is a way for people to open their minds that they can have a big life that is also a loving and healthy and fun life. So, if you want to do all of that, being an entrepreneur, I would highly encourage you to be an entrepreneur and to know that if you're already an entrepreneur, you can also have the health and enjoy your family and have tons of fun. So we won't take AI. That's one of the things we believe in. That's why we want to save our entrepreneurs so much time. But your podcast, I think, is a great resource for that. So thank you, Michael.